All right, welcome back to As It Should Be. Paul Bertolino here in the world-famous As It Should Be studios, right? And, well, anybody who is a regular viewer of this channel knows that with the Singles of the Year series that we've had going on for the last year, there's been a lot of endings of years and endings of decades, and, well, now here we are in the real world, and it's the end of a year. Yeah, 2022 has ended, and now we're beginning with 2023, and so I thought maybe I would give you my top 10 albums of 2022. Yeah, I actually managed to make a top 10 list of 2022 albums with runners-up. Yeah, I actually have honorable mentions, if you can believe this. And with some, I have physical copies of maybe about half of them, and not others. So I'm it's gonna be mix and match. They're gonna be pop-ups. There's gonna be actual albums. It's gonna be a smorgasbord. Okay. So why don't we get right into it, huh? All right, so I have a couple of runners-up here, a couple of which I actually have copies of, and one of them is this album, Classic 78, with Phantoms. Now, Classic 78, for you Kiss fans, I'm sure you know all about this, and you Kiss fans who don't know about it, I'm sure you recognize the imagery on the cover. Well, now, Classic 78 is a band, where are they up? Are they up in Connecticut? I'm not really sure. They're somewhere up northeast, and they make original music that is supposed to sounds exactly like mid-70s Kiss. Basically, it's almost kind of like it's almost like the Kiss equivalent of the Ruddles. You know what I mean? Like it's a band making music that sounds just like the original band, but it's original music, original lyrics, and everything. Yeah, it's just the weirdest thing. It's like this weird bizarro world where this other Kiss album exists that doesn't exist. Yeah, these are original tunes recorded. Like the voices are exactly the same. Like they have the exact guitar tones. You know, everything about the way they write the songs. I mean, like you can tell, like this is distinctly a Paul song. This is distinctly a Gene song. The vocals are exact. Like the guy that does the Gene vocal is exact. The guy that does the Paul Stanley vocal, so spot on that I don't know anybody's heard Paul Stanley lately, but he needs to hire this guy because this guy now sounds way more like Paul Stanley than Paul Stanley does now. The Ace vocal is great. It's the Peter not as much, but he also doesn't show up as much on these records. But they have 3 CDs, but this is the one from 2022, Phantoms, and I have it as a mere runner-up, but it's a really, really fun record for you Kiss fans. If you don't know about it, check it out. Okay, and also I have an album. I have a couple of albums actually from an artist who frequently comes up on my current best of lists, and well, I have John Howard with "Look," the unknown story of Danielle Dubois. Did I get that title? The Unknown Story of Danielle Dubois. Yes, exactly. It's a little bit of a long title, and I only have a brain that's this big, so. But yeah, Unknown Story of Danielle Dubois is a concept album, a song cycle concept album, what do you want to put it, about a man who basically somebody who was born knowing that they were not born in the right body, somebody who knows that who was born male but really is female on the inside, and leaves home once he becomes old enough, once he turns 19, and moves to London and becomes a big huge pop star. And the minute he becomes a big huge pop star and makes all this money, he vanishes and secretly transitions and then reappears in France as Danielle Dubois. And it's the life story of Danielle Dubois, and it's based on a friend of John's whose name I do not have off the top of my head. I should have put that on my notes, but it's a real life person that John knew who's no longer with us, and this is kind of I don't know, I wouldn't say almost a tribute to that person, but very much inspired by the story of that person. And a really great album by John. In fact, it deserves to be on the list, but I really had a lot of albums that I really loved, and I couldn't quite squeeze this John album on the list. And the other album I have is also from John Howard with long titles this time. From the Far Side of a Near Miss. Okay, From the Far Side of a Near Miss. Now this is his second album of this year, and it's a 36-minute album, one track. Yes, it's a full album length, single track. So I don't know is it an album or is it a single? I don't know. I guess it's for you to guess, for you to decide, I suppose. But it's a 36-minute song. and basically about his own experiences, because he has his own experiences of coming very, very, very close to hitting the big time in the music business and never quite making it, though he very richly deserved to make it huge. He deserved to be on Elton John level in the 70s, I will tell you that. Anyway, but yeah, so those are my runners-up. Alright, so go to get me glasses, because I have notes, haven't I? I've got to read notes. Okay, alright, let's bring them up. Alright, so my number 10. Let me grab my number 10 here. It's a slick operation, this. Alright, so number 10 I have Lord Have Mercy by Eitan Mirsky. Yeah, as you can see, it's autographed there. His good friend Paul. Now, this album, I didn't obtain this autograph personally, so I cannot vouch for its authenticity. But it comes from a very, very, very reliable source, so I'm sure that's probably all right. Well, Eitan Mirsky is he's a friend of mine. He's a local New York artist, born and raised Queens, man of Queens, and he has been making records for years, since the 90s, and this is his latest of, I can't think of offhand of how many albums he has, but he has quite a few albums. Now, this, now I'm going to start reading my notes, alright? So the music is sort of a bit of British pub rock, kind of, with some 50s influences, and a touch of power pop, and even a little bit of the J. Giles Band in there. He has excellent, naturally pitch-perfect vocals and clever humor-filled lyrics. And he kind of has a character that he takes on in his songwriting, which is that of a cynical loser. Now, and it's almost kind of like a sitcom character of a cynical loser writing songs, is kind of what his whole thing is. And it's really good, like straight ahead rock and roll kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, everything's kind of tongue in cheek. He's very dry. It's loaded with bone dry humor, Eitan. And again, I kind of already said that he's a fantastic singer. He's one of the best singers I know, easily. And this is, Eitan's pretty reliable. Like, Eitan pretty much, if you like Eitan, you pretty much can go with any one of his albums and you're going to be good, because he doesn't really, he doesn't go off on like weird, Neil Young kind of tangents. You're not going to suddenly get like a trance out of Eitan, you know what I mean? Like, Eitan knows what the fans want, and that's what he gives them. All right, and now I'm going to give you my standout tracks. I'm not going to list up everything and go track by track on all these, but I'm going to give you standout tracks. Now, I have 3 standout tracks for this Eitan album. The second track, Half-Hearted, yeah, that's probably my favorite track on the album. It's kind of a Motownish sort of rocker, and yeah, I really like that one. My other one is What Took You So Long. What Took You So Long? Now, that's kind of straight ahead rock track with a classic pop horn arrangement on it. And then there's It's Alright to Be Alone. Now, that is kind of a very cool sounding, slinky creeper of a track. It has kind of a cool late Doors, Ray Manzarek keyboard subtly in the mix. That sound that Ray had kind of on Morrison Hotel. He definitely had it on LA Woman, and then he kind of had it into like other voices and that stuff. Like, that tone, nice and subtle in there. It's a really nice, subtle little track. And for those of you who might be interested in checking out Eitan, and those of you who like this channel, you might want to go onto YouTube and look up his video for a song called I'm Gonna Fight It, which is from his previous album, Funny Money. This is his 2016 album, Funny Money. That's the opening track, I'm Gonna Fight It. And he has a music video on YouTube of that, which he and I sort of cooked up together. We put it together, I shot it and edited it, and we're both in the video. Well, obviously Eitan's in the video, but I'm in the video as well. And for those of you who know the band Tragedy, the heavy metal tribute to the Bee Gees and beyond, they appear as well. And yeah, it's kind of a neat little video that I'm rather proud of, that what I made myself. So go check that out. I'll put a link in the description down there, I think. But yeah, Eitan Mirsky. If you like kind of, wry, kind of snarky, kind of, sort of, I don't know, what's the word? Like Graham Parker kind of stuff. You like that kind of stuff, that kind of attitude, but with a real dry sense of humor. Eitan's your man. You could even you Warren Zevon fans may want to listen to a little bit of Eitan. Check him out. Okay, so coming in at number 9 is an album that I don't yet have a physical copy of. So I'm going to have to do a pop-up here, all right? Get ready. All right, this is Lee Fields with Sentimental Fool. Okay? Yeah, so Sentimental Fool by Lee Fields. Now, this is, I don't know how many albums in we are with Lee. Lee Fields has been making records, or been making music since the late 60s. His first single came out in 1969, and he's another one of those artists who really kind of had a long, tough trudge through the 70s and through the 80s and whatever. Not really making the big time, though continuing to work and pounding through and trying his best. He made a number of singles in the 70s, but I don't think he ever really made an album. He didn't really make a real good, proper album until 2009. I mean, I guess there's problems. When did that come out? But anyway, but really, everything really started for him in 2009 when he put out an album called My World with, I want to say it's the Daptone crew, but it's like folks associated with the Daptone crew. I want to say, is it Truth and Soul? You know what? Let's check something out here. This is going to be an edit. Okay. Yes. Truth and Soul. My World. Yeah, 2009. His My World album from 2009, which is a stone classic. And, you know, he's made a number of albums. Faithful Man, Emma Jean, Special Night, and It Rains Love, and all that kind of stuff. I'm probably forgetting one in there. But his latest one is this album, Sentimental Fool. Now, I'm a huge fan of Lee. I've been, he's a New York area artist. He actually lives in New Jersey, but he's always playing in Brooklyn. I mean, I used to go see him all the time 10 years ago when he was always playing with Charles Bradley at, various venues. And this latest album, basically he's for the uninitiated, he's kind of like a retro soul artist. He, anybody who knows the Daptone vibe, that's what it is. He has these like vintage sounding, like late 60s, early 70s sounding soul records. A lot of gospel-y kind of sound stuff, a lot of really upbeat kind of, but a lot of really James Brown kind of like, passionate screaming kind of stuff. He's an absolutely great singer. And now this album is leans more on the ballady side. If I had to rank his albums, it probably wouldn't be one of the higher ranked albums, because I feel like it does kind of drag a little bit, because I feel like there's too much slow stuff on it. But all that stuff is good. Like, there are no bad songs on it. I just kind of, when I listen to it, I feel like I want the pace to pick up. I feel like I want it to be a little bit more of a mix of stuff, but all the songs are good, and the performances are good, and his voice is fantastic, and Standout tracks for Sentimental Fool. We have Forever, which is the opening track. That's kind of a gospel-y opener. And Two Jobs, which I think is the third song, and that's like that has a jazzy Take 5 kind of feel to it. One of my favorites. And there's Without a Heart, which kind of has a James Hunter 6 vibe, kind of a cool organ sound, for those of you who know the James Hunter 6. And Extraordinary Man, which is great. It's like this really great, very, very different kind of vocal approach from Lee. Again, he's kind of a very James Browny kind of singer, but he kind of turns on a completely different vocal style in this track that's really, really cool, and it kind of sets the track apart from the rest of the tracks on the album. Anyway, yeah, so Lee Fields with Sentimental Fool. Check him out. Okay, so coming to number 8, another one I don't have a copy of, so we're going to pop it up here. Uni Boys with Do It All Next Week. Yeah, the Uni Boys. Now, Uni Boys are really cool. They're a really cool group. They're a bunch of really young guys from LA who formed a band in high school. And they're two main vocalists and songwriters in the band, so it's kind of that thing where it's almost like the John Lennon and Paul McCartney go back and forth between vocals and songs, kind of a vibe, kind of a dynamic. And the band was originally known as Uniform, which, as you can imagine, Uniform ended up kind of, morphing into Uni Boys. I don't know exactly how, but I mean, you can kind of see where that might be possible. All right, so late 70s power pop vibe. All right, definitely the product of kids who have been listening to Big Star, Shoes, The Quick, that kind of stuff. And the two singer-songwriters are Reza Matin, I don't know how to pronounce your name, sorry, Reza Matin, and Noah Nash. Now, yeah, this is just really great, just like almost kind of trashy, glammy guitar, power poppy guitar stuff. It's really exactly the kind of just like, youthful, abandoned kind of just rock and roll that's so missing these days. Like, these guys, they're really young and they completely and utterly get it. They really really know the music. They have a deep understanding of the music that they're making, and it's really well done. And it isn't like a bunch of kids kind of posing like they're rock and roll bohemians, or like, these guys really these guys are really truly fans of this kind of stuff, and like I said, really know all the bands and just have a deep understanding of the music, and it just really shows. It's like really good stuff. It'd be really kind of cool to see where they go from here. This is their first official album, but they have a couple of indie albums that they made. But like, this is the first album I think that they put out on a label. Now, I have some standout tracks from this. The standouts: Downtown. That's the second track on the album. Love that. That's one of my favorite songs of the year. Now, Reza Maitan. He's kind of has the more fey sort of voice. He has like this sort of fey kind of voice with like, but like with these great crunchy guitars, and it really sounds great. Great guitar tones and everything. Downtown, great track. In fact, I recommend that to be the first track you look up if you want to go check out the Uni Boys. The next song, Hypocrite, which is also another Reza Maitan song, and kind of in the same vein. He has like a particular style, but it sounds great. Like, I like he's kind of like my favorite of the two, if I'm gonna have to play favorites here. But I do have a song here from Noah Nash, and that's the opening track, You Worry About Me. Yeah, he sounds straight off. The song sounds like straight off the first Joe Jackson album, Look Sharp, and but with a much rawer sort of edge. Yeah, really, people who really like that kind of a, like I said, kind of trashy glam, kind of a late 70s, early 80s power pop kind of vibe. Check these guys out. You will not be disappointed. All right, so coming in at number 7. A classic band that started in the 90s, but they've been going strong ever since. All you Canadians know these guys, and you love them. In fact, one of Canada's greatest exports, as far as I'm concerned. This is Sloan. Sloan with their latest album, Steady. Yeah, now this is another one of those that I haven't gotten a physical copy of yet. And so I probably popped it up just there. I don't know which side I put it on. But, yeah, it's there isn't really a lot to say about this album, because it basically, if you like Sloan, you're good. Like, you can buy any. Like, Sloan has been making albums since the mid '90s, kind of maybe like around '94 or so, and I feel like they're one of those bands where their first couple albums really aren't their better albums. They got better as they went along. They kind of really hit their stride on this third or fourth album, and they've just been riding that wave ever since. Like, once they hit their thing on one chord to another, which is what, 95, 96, something like that. I mean, you basically can't lose with Sloan. Again, they're kind of, it's another one of those sort of guitar pop, power poppy kind of bands, but with a lot of great 60s and 70s influences. But these guys really just they're just chock-a-block with great songs. And they have several of it's 4 guys in the band, several of them write. I think all 4 of them write, all 4 of them sing, and they're all, there's no weak link. Like, they're all absolutely great. They have one of their albums is like, I think it's a double album, and each side is a member completely solo, writing the songs, playing everything, all the whole thing. These guys are really an underrated band. I mean, a lot of like again, power pop, the power pop community, they all know Sloan, and pretty much anybody in Canada probably knows Sloan, but they really deserve to be bigger and more well known. I mean, they're just a great classic pop rock and roll band that I can't recommend highly enough. And I should give you my standout tracks from the album, from Steady, and starting with the opening track, Magical Thinking. Then we have Spend the Day, Dream It All Over Again, and Nice Work If You Can Get It. Yeah, those are my 4 favorite songs, but really, when it's a Sloan album. It's I mean, it's kind of like which is kind of like a Ramones album, in that, like, you put on a Ramones album, like a good Ramones album, it's like, yeah, you're good. Like, you're not gonna isn't gonna be some sudden random weird clunker in the middle of it. Like, they keep it going exactly what you want from them the whole time. And Sloan, after all these years, still have this kind of youthful thing about them. Like, they haven't aged. Like, they haven't aged. They kind of haven't aged really much physically, but musically, like, they can completely still do what they've always done as well as they ever have. Like, they haven't lost their edge or anything in any way. So check out Sloan if you haven't. All right, it's coming to number 6. The Scorpions with Rock Believer. Yes, Rock Believer. One of the worst album titles of the year. Yeah, it's a really stupid title, but you know what? It is an absolutely great... Now, for you Scorpions fans, actually all you Scorpion fans, you all know about this album at this point, but anybody who's kind of maybe a casual fan of the Scorpions, who maybe hasn't paid attention to them since, say, Love at First Sting, or maybe stopped paying attention to them because of Winds of Change and some of the albums they put out in the late 80s, early 90s, well, yeah, they went on quite a journey, putting out albums that weren't really quite what they used to be. Well, this album is a work of magic. Yes, it's a miracle. Yeah, basically, at this stage of the game, I don't know how old those guys... I mean, Klaus Meine has got to be, in his 70s, easily, right? Far into his 70s. And these guys have made an album that is up there with their early 80s classic style. Like, this literally can stand right up next to Animal Magnetism and Love Drive and Blackout and Love at First Sting. It's like in that, they have the guitar tones. Klaus sounds amazing on the record. Like, his voice sounds 1,000 times better than it has any right to. Like, he sounds phenomenal. I cannot believe how good he sounds. He doesn't sound all pitch corrected, maybe, I mean, I'm sure if you listen close, there's probably a little bit in there, but he really is, like, he has all the power. He has all the power, and just, like, he's pushing out air, Klaus. And, the songs, like, the riffs, the guitar riffs are just classic early 80s Scorpions. You listen to these songs, and it's just like, wow, I cannot believe they can make such a perfect Scorpions album on as good as this in 2022. They haven't done it in a long time, folks. I mean, they have made albums that have good songs here and there, but they're never really quite like that classic Scorpions vibe. This is back to what you want to hear from the Scorpions, and I was stunned when I first heard it. Now, for me personally, this is an album that I feel like starts out a bit weak. Like, if you put this record on, and the first track, you might kind of go, really, Paul? It's okay, it isn't bad. Well, this album goes like this. It gets, like, the really, really kick-ass tracks are towards the middle of it. You want to put that record on and ride it out, because it gets to the point where it starts getting better and better and better and better. And I'm going to give you my standout tracks. Standout tracks for this album are Call of the Wild. That's late in the album. That's like second or third to last track on the album, Call of the Wild, but I love that one. Knock 'Em Dead, which is the third track, I believe. Great, like, Knock 'Em Dead. Like, when that song comes on and you hear the opening guitar riff of that, you're like, is this a Love Drive outtake? Nope, this is a brand new track, motherfuckers. Alright, Shining of Your Soul, great track. When I Lay My Bones to Rest, that's one of those really great, like, extra speedy, extra rocking, extra pummeling Scorpions tracks. And, Klaus sounds phenomenal on that track, especially. Seventh Son, which is kind of one of their moodier style tracks. Think Animal Magnetism, The Zoo kind of vibe. One of those style tracks. Great track. And Hot and Cold. Yeah, so I have 6 standout tracks from this album. Yeah, it really is. If you're a Scorpions fan and you haven't heard this album, turn this video off and go play that album. I mean, you need to listen to it right now, okay? Okay, so coming in number 5, an album I actually have a physical copy of, yeah. That's Shilpa Ray with Portrait of a Lady. Yeah, Shilpa Ray. This is Shilpa Ray's third album, and I only just got into her maybe about a year or so ago, but she has fast become easily one of my favorite current artists. And this album is, well, Shilpa in general. Let me describe Shilpa Ray to you. Her thing is kind of part Patti Smith in a good way. I don't like Patti Smith, really. I don't like Patti Smith at all. But Shilpa Ray is kind of like Patti Smith in a good way, with, she's part Patti Smith, part Stooges, part Blondie, part early 60s girl group, sharp and funny lyrics, absolutely great lyrics. And now this album is a song cycle on institutional misogyny. It's basically an angry, kind of big fuck you sort of album. It's kind of punky, but it's also kind of can be dreamy and ballady and everything. And it's such a great album. Shilpa. She's a local art. She's here in Brooklyn. She's a Brooklyn-based artist, and I've only gotten to see her once so far. And if you get a chance to see her live, go. She's absolutely phenomenal live. She's a great vocalist. Again, great songs. But this is definitely, her stuff is definitely an album where you want to pay close attention to the lyrics, because her lyrics are. She's probably my favorite current lyricist for sure. But let me give you the standout tracks from this album. My favorite tracks start with Manic Pixie Dream Cunt. That's the second track on the album. Manic Pixie Dream Cunt. This is kind of a Stooges type rave up, one of her Stooges-y tracks. My next favorite on here is, her titles are great. Her album titles are great. Heteronormative Horseshit Blues. Okay, now Heteronormative Horseshit Blues has kind of a bit of a late 50s, early 60s vibe, through a Vaseline lens. It's weird. It's kind of like has that sort of scratchy, yellowing film kind of sound to it. A really, really great track. Then there's Lawsuits and Suicide. Lawsuits and Suicide is kind of like a late 70s, early 80s new wave kind of track. It's almost kind of like an edgier version of The Metro by Berlin if it was sung by Debbie Harry. At least that's the way I hear it. And then my other standout track from this album is Cry for the Cameras. Now, Cry for the Cameras is one of the dreamier tracks on the album. Another review that I read recently of the album described this as a snarling version of a 50s pop songstress. The antiquated meets the revolutionary. Boom. Yeah, there you go. The antiquated meets the revolutionary. Check out Shilpa Ray. She comes highly recommended, all right? From me, as it should be. Okay, so coming in number 4, Wise Blood with And in the Darkness, Hearts Aglow. Yeah, man, yeah. Wise Blood. Now, Wise Blood is the pseudonym of an LA-based singer-songwriter, Natalie Merry. And she has a very warm and deep Karen Carpenter-esque quality to her voice, much like Rumor. Anybody who remembers Rumor, if you remember Rumor, well, she kind of like, Wise Blood kind of delivers on the promise of Rumor. I feel like Rumor didn't really deliver on the promise of Rumor, because she had an album out in 2010 with all original songs. She sounded great, her songs were really good, but she ended up kind of just mostly doing a bunch of covers albums. Wise Blood is a writer, and a prolific writer, and she has that kind of voice, that really warm bath of a, the Karen Carpenter's voice. It's really, really fantastic. Now, the music is very floaty and dreamy with lush arrangements, and even the upbeat tracks kind of seem to be floating by on a cloud. Now, this is the second part in a trilogy, which... Actually, I have the first one here, the album where I got hip to old Wise Blood, the first album in the trilogy, Titanic Rising. Now, really, I have to say, if you are wanting to check out Wise Blood, if you're watching this video going, oh, maybe I'll check out this artist, this is really the album you want to go to first. Titanic Rising. This is the gold standard of Wise Blood albums, all right? But go right to this album next after you listen to that one, if you like it. Now, Titanic Rising, presciently, considering it came out in 2019, warned of catastrophe to come. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this album is about. And this came out ahead of the whole, world ending with COVID and all that kind of stuff. Now, this album now is sort of taking place during the catastrophe. It's sort of like a note reaching out to you from within the catastrophe. We're in the middle of the catastrophe on this album. So I'm going to assume that, I don't know, the next one will be sort of an out of the ashes kind of thing. I don't know, we'll see. But this record, I bought this record the day it came out because again, like I said, I got into her when I heard Titanic Rising, and then when she had a new album out, I'm like, this is a day of release purchase, right? So I checked around in my local record stores. A lot of record stores don't get new albums on day of release. It isn't like it used to be when you could go to a record store on the day of release and everybody had everything. Now it's kind of like hit or miss. So there was a place in Williamsburg here in Brooklyn who I looked on their social media and they had the record. So I went over there and I went into the store. They were fresh out. It had sold out day of release. And I was like, damn. I thought, man, I should have called ahead, or I should have come earlier, whatever it is. Shoulda. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to Academy. So I walked up to Academy, which is in Greenpoint, and they had the record. And what's cool is they had this loser edition, which is on clean, colored vinyl. It has like a translucent purple kind of splattery vinyl. And they had inside, it was in a sleeve, and they had inside a sleeve a promo poster. They were giving away free promo posters with the record, and it's two-sided. There's kind of basically the album cover image, and then, so I guess an alternate image, and then there's this side, which is basically the album cover. So that was kind of cool. I don't think the other store that I had gone to, I don't think I would have gotten the poster had I gotten it there. But then I opened the record, and there's another poster in there, but it's an entirely different poster. It's kind of the same image, but it's... Don't mind me while I open up this giant poster here. Woo! Yeah. I mean, you remember the days when you used to get giant-ass posters and records? Well, looks like they're back. And, and there's a sticker in there and everything. Like, it's a bargain. That is a bargain for you. Yeah, the New Wise Blood. Anyway, so let me give you the standout tracks for the New Wise Blood album. Easily my favorite song on the album, and one of my favorite songs of the year, is the opening track. It's Not Just Me, It's Everybody. Oh, man. What a track. It's just a gorgeous, slow, floaty, and, like I've described her overall sound, it's floaty and just kind of like, And Children of the Empire is kind of more of an upbeat, kind of bouncy song, but even, like I said, even her upbeat tracks kind of have that floating on a cloud vibe. Grapevine is a great track. She's in LA, so it's of course about driving on the Grapevine. And The Worst Is Done, which is another one of the great upbeat tracks on the album. Yeah, those 4 tracks are my favorites, and I recommend Wise Blood. But like I said, check out Titanic Rising first. Okay, so coming to number 3, an album that I'm long overdue to get a copy of, but I'll give you a pop-up here. Tears for Fears with The Tipping Point. Oh, man. Who would have known that Tears for Fears could put out such a great like one of their best albums easily this late in the game? Absolutely great. It completely annihilates the likes of the Seeds of Love and crap like that. This is such a great late Tears for Fears album. Now, I'm not going to go on too much about this record because I actually have an older video, go back and watch that, where I reviewed the album when it came out. And I go into great detail about it, track by track, and mention everything that I think about every track and the whole thing. But this is a record that they've been kind of trying to make. It took them quite a few years to try to make, and they were running into all kinds of issues, and Kurt and Roland kind of butting heads about which direction the album should go, and it kind of almost didn't happen, and then they almost kind of broke up, and then they got back together and decided to kind of put the pieces back together and do the album with a different approach. What they ended up coming up with in the end, I can't speak highly enough about it. And if you're a Tears for Fears fan, and don't know this album, you weren't aware they had it, or maybe you just went, oh, new Tears for Fears, well, maybe I'll listen to that one day. No. Listen to the new Tears for Fears. It's absolutely great. It's kind of like classic Tears for Fears meets more modern I mean, it's a little modern in some of its tones and some of its production values, but it's so distinctly Tears for Fears, and like great classic Tears for Fears songwriting. Their voices sound absolutely great. Kurt, Roland, great voices. Now, I'm going to give you my standout tracks on this. My standout tracks are the title track, The Tipping Point. I'm not that big on the opening track. This is another one of those albums where I feel like they don't put their best foot forward. I like the opening track, forgetting the name of it off the top of my head, and I don't have it in my notes down here, but whatever, the opening track. Perfectly good track. There isn't a bad track on the album, but far from one of my favorites. But then it goes into the title track, The Tipping Point. What a song. Kind of, admittedly, it's kind of ripping off the Everybody Wants to Rule the World rhythm. You know, kind of a thing. Very much kind of that kind of a thing, but a great song. It's kind of, it's nostalgic to listen to it, because it's like, oh shit, I haven't heard a new Tears for Fears song that sounds like this in decades. Yeah, well. And then my other favorites on this album are Long Time, great Kurt Smith song. Break the Man, oh, such a good one. Master Plan, and End of the Night. Those are my favorite tracks on an album that has no bad tracks. Yeah, Tears for Fears, The Tipping Point. Okay, so coming in number 2 is an album that I initially kind of had when I sort of first drew up this list. I kind of put it somewhere kind of in the middle. I remembered really liking the album, and I kind of was going over in my head and thinking, yeah, you know, I'll put it right about here. And then I had a refresher listen to it as I was kind of getting ready, as I was making my notes and things, and I went, oh shit, no. This is number 2. This is a number 2, yeah, and that is Sean Lee with Sean Lee Rides Yet Again. Now, Sean Lee is one half of that duo that I speak so much about, Young Gun Silver Fox. Yeah, Young Gun Silver Fox is Sean Lee and Andy Platts, and Sean Lee he's been making solo albums and albums with other, you know, collaborating with other artists for decades. But this album is a follow-up to his 2019 solo album called Sean Lee Rides Again. And you know, I really like that album. In fact, it's on my 2019 list. Spoiler alert, if nobody, you know, I haven't made a video for that, but yeah, that's on my 2019 albums of the year list for sure. But so anyway, so this year when he announced that he was going to be putting out a new album in the same kind of vein, with the same sort of theme and the same kind of sound, well, not necessarily the same theme. It's basically 2019's album Rides Again. It was more of a personal album than he usually does. The lyrics are kind of about his own life and, you know, his own experiences, and he decided to do a follow-up that was kind of the same sound, because he does a lot of different vibes and different sounds on his albums outside of Young Gun Silver Fox. And when I heard he was doing that, I mean, I hit buy on that immediately. I'm like, I'm buying that. Now I'll tell you what, as much as I like Rides Yet Again is twice as good. This is twice as good as Rides Again. This is such a great record. Now let me get to my notes down here. Now, it's cinematic soft rock and blue-eyed soul with beautiful string arrangements. And Sean's voice is a bit of an acquired taste, but the songs and the arrangements and the production are so excellent that, you know, you kind of find yourself quickly calibrating to it. And yeah, he's not the lead singer of Young Gun Silver Fox. So it's like really great kind of 70s kind of sounds, but with a different voice. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you... this album has a little bit of a story behind the origins of it, and I want to read it to you in his words, because when he put this out, it's like up on Bandcamp and stuff. Go to Bandcamp and get yourself a copy of this. He put up his little blurb here that I'm going to read to you word for word, because who could put it better than Sean Lee himself? Okay, so he says... When the original pandemic lockdown of 2020 ascended upon the world, I found myself, like many others, a prisoner in my own home. I began thinking about making new music. What do I want to do? I pondered. Rides Again was a personal once-in-a-lifetime album. Or was it? After some reflection, I realized there was more to this story and to this sound, and as I eventually crept back into my studio, ducking and diving all the way, I started writing and recording new songs for Rides yet again. Now, the lyrics are heavily informed by life during lockdown, of course. My new dog, Carla. There's a song called Carla on the album. And my recent health problems. Now, this is one of the main reasons why I'm reading you this, because I did not know about this. This was just like a moment when I read this. Now, he says, I had suffered a stroke, which left me with some brain damage, and I struggled with aphasia for well over a year. With extremely impaired speech. It was very hard. I found solace in song and in musical context to share my ups and downs. It was a beautiful place to retreat to. John Pickup brought his brilliant orchestral treatments, and Nicole Thompson, Tom Walsh, Mike Davis, and Andy Ross blessed me with their sublime horn stylings. Yeah, this album. This is just like, I think I already described it, right? Just really cinematic soft rock and blue-eyed soul kind of stuff. If you like late 70s, warm late 70s stuff, you know, like I always say about Young Gun Silver Fox, such a great record. Like, and now, in fact, this record is so good that when I scroll down to my standout tracks list, what I have written here, all in caps, is the whole damn album. Yeah, I couldn't pick out standout tracks because you listen to it and it's like, yeah, that one. Oh yeah, and that one. Oh yeah, and that one. Oh yeah, and that one. In fact, the only thing I could do is give you my one least favorite track on the album, which is a good song. And that is Manuka Honey. Yeah, that's my least favorite song on the album, but it's still a good song. Every other song is a complete banger. Okay? 2 instrumentals. Bangers. I'm not usually an instrumental guy. Sean Lee Rides yet again. Check it out. Okay, and coming in number 1, like you didn't see this coming from a million miles away, Young Gun Silver Fox with Ticket to Shangri-La. Now, another album, kind of like the Tears for Fears album, that I'm not really going to go on about too much in this video because I have a video that I put out just a little while back. Scroll back and look at my older videos, maybe about a month or 2 ago. I put out a whole video reviewing this album, and I go into great detail, again, like the Tears for Fears video, where I go track by track and tell you what I think about every single song, describe every track and the whole thing. I really go in deep, man. Okay, so for those of you who may want a bit of a description and don't want to have to actually go back to another video, I'll give you a little bit of... They're kind of like smooth and soulful, yacht rocky, you know, and a bit dancey at times. Really late 70s doobies and Steely Dan and Player, like those are all kind of the bands that I feel like I hear the most influence from. You know, very MOR, and, you know, very, very soulful vocals from Andy Platts. Like, he's a great soulful vocalist. And, you know, the production is just straight out of 1978, 79. Like, if you love that sound, that 1978, 79 kind of production value, again, very warm, you're really going to love this. Now, if you don't like that kind of stuff, if you don't like late 70s Steely Dan or Doobie Brothers, yeah, you know what, this is not going to be your steez, man. And I can dig that. But anyway, standout tracks. Now, favorite track on the album is also by far my favorite track of the year. If we were doing a favorite tracks of 2022 video, number 1 by a mile, and that is Sierra Nights. Oh, Sierra Nights. Oh my God. Opening track on side 2 of this album. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful and floaty and dreamy. All those things that you know I love in a song. The epitome. It's an absolute stone cold instant classic. Love this song so much. But my other favorites on the album: Rolling Back, Lodestar, Winners, and Starting Wars. Yeah, those are my favorite tracks on this album. Now, yeah, again, anybody, if you don't know about Young Gun Silver Fox, but you love that kind of late 70s vibe, the warm sounds, the doobies, kind of the Mike McDonald doobies kind of stuff, you know, the late Steely Dan kind of stuff, check this album out. I money back guarantee. Of course, you're gonna have to contact Young Gun Silver Fox, for that money back, but tell them I sent you. Alright, so there you go. That's my top 10 favorite albums of 2022. Who knew this was even possible? Yeah, well, I kind of try to put together a list every single year, and I pretty much managed. 2021, not so much, because not much was coming out. But this year, 2022, we were back in the saddle. A lot of really good albums that I love, personally at least, came out this year. And anyway, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing, and thank you for everybody who's been watching. But if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, click the little bell. If you click the little bell, click the little bell because you're going to want notifications. But, like and comment and tell me, do you know these albums? If you go and listen to them because you watched this video, let me know in the comments what you think of them. I would love to know what you think of Shilpa Ray and Wise Blood and Sean Lee and, of course, Young Gun Silver Fox and all that kind of stuff. Such good stuff. And you Scorpions fans, everybody weigh in on that. I mean, how do you guys feel about the new Scorpions album? You gotta love that album, right? You can't possibly dislike the new Scorpions. Well, anyway. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. 2023. Many, many more videos to come. In fact, this Thursday, Singles of the Year is going to be back. Tommy Von Voigt, Crystal Durant are going to be back here in the world-famous As It Should Be Studios, and we are going to be counting down our favorite top 10 singles of 1990. Okay? Yes, it's the beginning of the 90s, and, and you are there. All right. I will see you guys soon.